for this session. I will begin by stating the Toastmaster Club mission, which is we provide a supportive and positive learning experience in which members are empowered to develop communication and leadership skills, resulting in greater self-confidence and personal growth. There are certain ground rules, which are the speakers shall not speak on any taboo topics, which are sex, religion, and politics. I would, I would request everyone to be on mute when they are not speaking and to not speak while others are speaking. If you have any questions, please post it on the chat screen so that DTM Sandeep can answer your questions. With that, I will pass on the baton to AD Rehna. Rehna, over to you.
Thank you, Toastmaster Devina. For good ideas and true innovation, you need human interaction, conflict, argument, and debate. Good evening, my dear fellow Toastmasters. We are gathered here for an education session on debate contest. As you all know, as the temperature start dropping, the heat among Toastmasters clubs, especially in Division F, get higher because we are starting our debate season. First, we will have the club contest, and then we will have our division contest on November 14th. And if you have witnessed the previous contest, we will have very heated debates, arguments in between different clubs. We have 29 clubs. So before that, we have to prepare our clubs, our club members, how to participate in a proper debate. That is the main mission of this session. And I once again welcome all to this session. I declare this meeting is started. And to lead our session, first we will have a debate education session that will be led by DTM Sandeep Vengsarkar, who is a Toastmaster from 2007. His home club is City of Gold, and he is a member of Take the Bait and JLT Toastmasters Club. By profession, he is an IT director, and he is past divisional director for last year. He is a very good debater. He has competed in several debate contests earlier. So let us welcome DTM Sandeep Vengsarkar. I think you are on mute.
Okay. Sorry, did I get disconnected? Did you lose me in between, or am I okay?
We were not hearing from you, though. I think the audio was not clear.
Yeah. Okay. I think that, can you give me 30 seconds, guys? I will set myself on another laptop. This seems to be giving me some issues. Yeah. Give me 30 seconds. I'll just log in from another laptop. Give me a minute. This laptop doesn't work properly.
We have Toastmaster Nitin as our timer, so those who are participating in mock debate can pin Toastmaster Nitin. And we have Toastmaster Midun as our debate moderator. So he will explain the rules and he will be conducting the debate.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, you are audible now.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm very sorry about this. This is one of classic Murphy's law when things don't have to when things have to work properly, they don't. Once again, Toastmaster Raina, thank you very much for this opportunity, and apologies for this initial challenges with setting this thing up. But hopefully this should work properly through the rest of the debate. Okay. I think I have 30 minutes, 34 minutes for the rest of the session, and I'll hopefully cover it in that 30 minutes. The way I'm going to go through this is maybe cover very briefly the structure of the debate and also look at the timing mechanisms. And from there, get on to the key factors in terms of how do you effectively get the scores in a debate. I would request you to keep your videos on because I like to see the reactions when I'm speaking, so that helps me judge whether I'm putting you to sleep or I'm doing my work properly. So let me first let me share my screen to start the whole thing. How many of you have participated in a debate before? One, two, okay. So I have a feeling it's going to be a kind of a mixed bag in terms of what we do. So let me just get down to the basics, right? So debates, the way we run it, I call it for people who follow cricket, I call it the this format, debate format, as the T20 format. The other formats are much bigger. It normally takes a much longer time. But the format that we follow is something that gets over in 25 minutes, and that's the intention that we don't spend a lot of time and get into a lot of details. So 3 speakers in every team. There is an opening speaker, there is a rebuttal speaker, and there is a closing speaker. There is a topic which is given. Normally you would have one of 3 types of topics given to you in a debate. The first kind of topic is what I call as a comparative topic. The kind which you are seeing on the screen now. Women are better managers than men. That's what I call as a comparative topic. The second kind of topic which is there is what I call as changing the status quo. What do I mean by that? Sometimes you get a topic like death penalty should be banned, or smoking in public should be banned. That is a changing of the status quo. And you are asked to take a side, either the affirmative side or the negative side for that topic. And the third kind of topic is just to take a stand, right? It could potentially be online, climate change is a fad, right? It could be just be a topic like that. Or it could be that superfoods is a marketing gimmick. So these are the kinds of three kinds of topics that you would potentially get in any of the debate contests that we run across District 105. Now you would have an affirmative team. The affirmative team is expected to speak for the topic, and the negative team, which is the team against, is supposed to speak against the topic. The sequence of speaking will be something like this. The opening speaker for the affirmative team can speak for 3 minutes. Then the next speaker to speak will be the opening speaker of the team against, followed by the rebuttal speaker of the team against, and then the rebuttal speaker of the team affirmative. Then the next person to speak is the the closing speaker of the team negative, and the last speaker to speak will be the closing speaker of the team affirmative. So that is the normal sequence of the speakers. When it comes to the timing, and this can change, so basically ensure that you hear it from the moderator properly. Normally the way we follow it is that we will have, for the opening and rebuttal speaker, we will have an amber or a green
at 2 minutes 30 seconds. Then a red at 3 minutes. And after that, these speakers get 10 seconds grace. In a physical meeting, after that 10 seconds grace, the timer starts clapping. And when the timer starts clapping, the judges have been advised not to take into effect any statements made after the claps are done. In a online meeting, we are a little better off. So normally what happens is the timer will mute the speaker after the 10 seconds are over. So 3 minutes you will see red, 3 minutes 10 seconds, the timer will mute the speaker. So we will need to make the timer a co-host during the course of the debate here. The next, for the closing speakers, the maximum time allowed is 2 minutes. So you will see a amber or a green at 1 minute 30 seconds, a red at 2 minutes, and at 2 minutes 10 seconds, the speaker will be muted. So this is the sequence of the debate, and this is the timing mechanism for the debate. Now let's move ahead and start looking at the judges' ballot. If you look at the judges' ballot for a debate, 70% of the marks for a debate are for the content, and only 30% is for the delivery. It doesn't matter whether you do a beautiful voice modulation or body language, you can actually read as long as you have enough contact with the audience. So there is no points cut if you are reading at all. 70% is for the content, and it is broken up into 3 things: debate development, value to audience, and effectiveness. Now, what I'm going to do now is over the next few minutes, I'm going to take each speaker, whether it's an opening speaker, the rebuttal speaker, and the closing speaker, and take you through how does each one of these speakers get maximum points out of that 70%. So let's start with the opening speaker. Now, the opening speaker of any team, whether it's the affirmative team or it is the negative team, is expected to provide what I call as an initial construct of his team. So he's supposed to come and say, this is why this is the stand we as a team are taking. Let's assume that the topic is women are better managers than men. So this is the stand that we are taking, that we feel that women are better managers than men. And over the next 3 minutes, he is expected to speak and prove why the team thinks that way. So this is to be a 3-minute prepared speech. And as with any kind of a prepared speech, it is expected to have an opening, a body, and a closure. In 3 minutes, the maximum time, that maximum amount that you can come up with is around 3 to 4 points. Why 3 to 4 points is because it's not enough, just enough to make statements. It is, you have to provide the supporting for the statements. For example, if as an opening speaker you come and make a statement which says women are better managers than men because they can multitask, that's a statement, that's a position you are taking. Where is the proof? So you will have to come up with research or supporting which basically can tell that this is the research which was done and this is when it was done, and in that research someone proved that this is a situation. So that is what I call as supporting facts and figures. Now there might be some topics where you might not get research. Then what is a supporting? If you don't get research, or if that is the kind of topic that you have, a supporting could be an incident. A supporting could be an example of a person, or a supporting can be an experience. That also is considered a supporting. But a supporting is always required. Now, a few ground rules when you are selecting the supportings. Number one, when you are selecting research, ensure that you quote exactly what the research is, which institute or which organization did it, when was it done, which year, and what was the sample size. Just saying research has proved that X, Y, and Z is the case is not good enough. It has to be research done by the Harvard Business School in the year 2007 in the USA has shown this. That is the level of detail you need to go into a supporting. Number two, if you are using examples of personalities, ensure that you use examples of personalities which are famous. Avoid using personal examples. Just because you as a person are a good manager doesn't mean that all managers who are men are good managers. So you cannot use personal examples at supportings. If you use that, the rebuttal speaker on the opposite side will have a field day, and I will show you how in the when I go to the next slide. The third one is when you quote incidents which are generally known to all and also are recent and not way back in the past. So these are the three key things which will help you to get points. One, go for 3 to 4 points maximum. Don't try to do a lot of work as a part of your opening speech. Ensure you have an opening, a body, and a closure and a conclusion of your opening speech. When you make a statement, ensure that it is supported. It can be supported by facts, research. It can be supported by example. It can be supported by incidents. So this is the role of the opening speaker. Another important thing for an opening speaker is you have to take a stand, and it has to be the stand of the team that you are supporting, even if you do not believe in it. Even if you are a member of the team, a male member of the team, women are better managers than men. Even if you don't believe that women are better managers than men, you have to stand there and prove that women are better managers than men, and you have to believe it. So that has to be the way. Secondly, do not get into this thing of being a fair person and say, yeah, sometimes, sometimes men are better in some cases, but generally, no. It is only your case and your stand. You cannot even give even an inch to the opposition in a debate. So remember that when you do a debate. Now let me go on to the next thing, which is the rebuttal speaker. Now this role is one of the most most interesting role in a debate, and always goes hand in hand with the opening speaker of the opposition. A lot of times people think, and what is he expected to do? Let's start with what he is expected to do. He or she is expected to do. The rebuttal speaker is expected to strike off every point made by the opposing opening speaker. I say every point, try to do it for every point. If not, at least counter 2 to 3 major points which the person has made. That is the main role of the rebuttal speaker. Remember the following. You have to reference the point made by the opening speaker of the opposition as a part of your rebuttal, because as your rebuttal, you are not expected to add any new points to your debate. So for example, if the opening speaker of the opposition has said that women are better managers than men because there was a research done in the 2007 or 2008 which did X, Y, and Z. As a rebuttal speaker, if you have something against it, you are expected to come back and say, sir, You mentioned this research made in the year 2008, but do you know that there is another research that proves this? You have to reference the original statement when you are doing a rebuttal. If you don't, then it will be considered that as if you are adding a new point and you might lose marks from the judges. Every single thing needs to be referenced. The other thing is, one quality which a rebuttal speaker needs to have is the quality of listening carefully and the quality of writing fast. The reason is the following. Whenever an opening speaker is speaking, you are just making notes and listening very carefully to words. And I will give you some examples how you can catch the opening speaker of the opposition. Sometimes a person comes and says, in the research has proved that XYZ is true without really quoting the research. The rebuttal speaker can come up and say, where is your source of research? Is this some research that you've done on the way to the meeting? I don't believe you didn't quote any source, you didn't quote any sample size. So what is the validity of the research that you have quoted? Number one. If the opposition speaker, the opening speaker, has made a statement and talked about a personal incident, a lot of times this happens because we have been told as Toastmasters that in our speeches we have a personal incident. So we bring it in a debate also. So what happens if you are a rebuttal speaker? You could potentially say, Madam, your personal example was beautiful, but madam, you are not a sample size. There are X billion people in X million women in the world. Are you a representative of the X million people in the world? That's what is important for the rebuttal speaker to pick up. A lot of times someone defines a topic. So someone will come and define the topic of a manager. So they say we define manager as X, Y, and Z. Who are you to define? The definition has to come from a dictionary. So who are you to define? So this is some of the things that a rebuttal speaker can effectively use. Now, how do you prepare yourself? See, the opening speaker has got a lot of time. The topic which was given to you today, for example, you had 2 weeks to prepare for the topic as an opening speaker. As a rebuttal speaker, how does a rebuttal speaker prepare? A lot of times rebuttal speaker think that their job starts when the opening speaker starts speaking and they cannot prepare. I disagree. The way for a rebuttal speaker to prepare is put yourself in the shoes of the opening speaker of the opposing team and write that opening speaker speech. See, let's be realistic, right? Whenever a topic is given for the debate, the first thing any team does anywhere is goes to Google and puts the topic there, and they will look at those things and start doing the research. And that's exactly, as a rebuttal speaker, what you should do. And make a note of the potential points that the opening speaker of the opposition is going to come up with, and have your rebuttal ready. I know, for example, that the opening speaker of the opposition is going to make point 1, point 2, point 3. And I will make a note against it, which basically says, if the opening speaker says point 1, I will say point A. If he says B, I will rebut using C. So this is what needs to have been done by the rebuttal speaker even before the debate starts. And that is how you can make your rebuttal effective. So as a rebuttal speaker, I always tell people you can be politely rude. So you could basically say, the opening speech of my opponents was like a piece of Swiss cheese full of holes. And then you go and prove where the holes were. They talked about some research, but I didn't see any reference given to any research. This must have been some research they did when they were coming for this meeting. So this is the way, as a rebuttal speaker, you can be politely rude and bring down the opponent speaker's thing. Observe the opponents carefully. And this point happens in a physical debate where you don't get this chance in an online debate. A lot of times the opening speaker comes and says, asks the audience, how many of you believe that women are better managers than men? And invariably, if you are attentive, you will realize that there are 1 or 2 people amongst 100 who put up their hands. If you are observing this as a rebuttal speaker, you can close the debate there itself. My dear sir, you asked 100 people, how many believe women are better managers than men? And only 2 raised their hands. So 2% of the population, do you think we should even be there to debate any further? We can all go home now and save another 20 minutes. So this is the attentiveness that you need to bring in as a rebuttal speaker. Now, one point to the rebuttal speaker of the affirmative team. The rebuttal speaker of the affirmative team is speaking after the rebuttal speaker of the negative team. Do not fall into the trap of rebutting the rebuttal of the other team. You are only supposed to rebut the opening speaker of the opposing team. Okay, so that are some of the tips and tricks of a rebuttal speaker and how you can do it. So in summary, even if you don't become sarcastic, even if you don't become politely rude, follow the things like this. Ensure that you pick up things where research is not quoted properly or incidents are not recorded, are mentioned properly. Ensure that whenever you make a point of rebuttal, it is always referenced to a point which is made by the opening speaker. One thing which I forgot to give, one classic situation which happens in most of the debates. Someone comes up and gives you a research which is way back. Someone, last week I was doing an education session, they said in 2005 a research was conducted. Sir, 2005 is 15 years back. Today it is 2020. This is the age of COVID. This is the age of Bluetooth. Where were you? What are you talking about 2005? So these are some of the tips and tricks for a rebuttal speaker to ensure that he makes that rebuttal effective. Now the last speaker, which is your closing speaker. Now the closing speaker has got 2 minutes. How does a closing speaker prepare? See, remember, as a closing speaker, you are only expected to summarize the points of your team and not bring anything up of the opponent's speech. So as a closing speaker, when the opponents are speaking, you can go to sleep if you want. Only listen to what your opening speaker and rebuttal speaker is saying. Now, how do you prepare as a closing speaker? Number one, see, the topic today has been given to you 2 weeks back. As your opening speaker should be ready with his opening speech. So the moment your opening speaker is ready with your opening speech, that speech should be with the closing speaker. And that is 1 minute of the 2 minutes. So 50% of your preparation is done even before the debate has started. And if you have not done this, then you have not worked as a team. It is absolutely important that when the opening speaker's speech is ready, it is shared with the closing speaker, and the closing speaker has made the necessary notes of summarizing the opening speaker of his or her team. Then you go to the rebuttal speaker. Give 40 seconds for the rebuttal speaker. 1 minute for your opening speaker, 40 seconds for your rebuttal speaker. Again, If the rebuttal speaker has done his or her job well, they should have given you a potential points that they are going to rebut on. That should be with the closing speaker. And then he says, okay, my rebuttal speaker said this, okay. Out of the 4 points that the rebuttal speaker has given you, maybe they were only able to speak to. Fair enough. Only summarize that. And the last 20 seconds, use that as a final statement. And that statement needs to be very, very said with absolute conviction, and it should absolutely be eloquent. And I will show you how. So normally as a closing speaker, what I tell people to do is the following. Start off with saying, for the last 15 minutes, me and my team have proven to you that women are better managers than men. First statement, you can make this binary literally. My opening speaker has quoted research from X, Y, and Z, which proves that women have 1, better multitasking skills, 2, XYZ, 3, ABC. This is what my opening speaker has done. My rebuttal speaker has brought down all the arguments raised by the opening speaker of the opposing team. She has showed that the research that the opponent team put forward was a research which was old, or the research which was not quoted properly, or they gave an incident for something which is given incident for which is not relevant to the topic. So that is your rebuttal speaker's summary. Hence, I would now like to request the House to accept the motion that women are better managers than men, or if you are speaking in the negative team, reject the motion that women are better managers than men. So ensure that you make that as an absolutely structured speech. Ensure as a closing speaker that you ask the House to accept or reject the motion, because that is very important. Otherwise, what were you doing here for the last 25 minutes? For the last 25 minutes, you came and said something to the audience and talked a lot about to the people, right? What were you doing here for the last 25 minutes? So you have to come in and be very succinct and say, we have shown you, we have given you proof. My opening speaker has given you proof. My rebuttal speaker has thrown down all the arguments made by the opposing team. Hence, it is your duty now as a House to accept the motion or reject the motion. And then close it over to you and close the motion. Right? Ensure that you do that effectively and eloquently with force. As a closing speaker, you have that ability to do it. Yeah. So that's the quality of a closing speaker. So in summary, ensure you have an opening and a closure which is structured. I'm not saying use the same words I used, but have it as a structure. Number 2, ensure that you summarize only your team's points. You should be ready with the summary of your opening speaker even before the debate starts. If you are not, that means you have not worked as a team. Ensure that you bring in, maybe even if you bring in 1 or 2 rebuttal points, the summary of 2 rebuttal points which your rebuttal speaker has made, it is good. Even 1 is good, but ensure that you give that respect to your rebuttal speaker. A lot of times what happens is, everyone is ready with the opening speaker. The opening speakers, you do a summary and then you suddenly find you don't have anything to summarize for your rebuttal speaker. Then what do you do? So ensure that you bring at least 1 point which says, my rebuttal speaker has effectively brought down the arguments raised by the opening speaker of the opposing team, and then go forward. So this is basically the structure that you follow as a closing speaker, and close the debate. Somewhere along the line, the judges should get the feeling that the 3 people in the team have worked as a team. See, this is the only team contest that you have. All others are individual contests. So somewhere along the line, the judges should get that impression, and that impression they can get only if the closing speaker does his or her job effectively. Otherwise, sometimes you have the opening speaker comes and does one speech, the rebuttal speaker does another, and the closing speaker comes and does his or her own speech. Now, that's not the role of the closing speaker. The closing speaker is only a summarizer. See, the people who love football, the defender's chances of scoring a goal are very less, right? But he is a very effective person who needs to be there. So that's the role of the closing speaker. Okay. So summary, I told you what are the key things for all the three speakers. I have told you the structure of the debate. I'm now going to open the floor for, I think we might be having some 5 minutes now remaining out of my time. So I will open the floor, unmute yourself, ask a question. I would have allowed it if in the chat, but I didn't mention it earlier. But so unmute yourself, ask a question, but we will stop exactly at time. Timer, can you just say exactly when my time is over? So maybe we'll take 2 or 3 questions, not more. Any questions?
Yeah, just one. When you say that you can't build or you can't add any additional new points,
Yeah.
what do you mean exactly by that? Are you able to build on what your opening speaker has said?
So let's not your opening speaker. You have to reference it to the opening speaker of the opposition. So let's
That's
say
the only thing you can do. You can't build on the points that your opening speaker has made at all?
No,
Okay.
no.
That's
So
clear. Thank you.
so let's say you have a piece of research which you really want to bring in. So there is a trick to it. So say, look at a point made by the opening speaker of the opposition. My learned opponent brought some research, which is X, Y, and Z. But he forgot to look at this research, which says A, B, and C. So you have brought in your point, but linked it to a point made by the opening speaker of the opposition. That way you can slip in some of the points which you have yourself.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other question? I think we have time for one more.
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah.
Sometimes the opening speaker, they have all statistics and so many points which cannot be rebutted.
Why
So,
not? Why not?
Many times.
So if you're done your preparation, there is never a situation which cannot be done. I will tell you what happens. A rebuttal speaker comes to the meeting, to the debate, thinking I will start my preparation after the opening speaker starts speaking. Right? That is not how the rebuttal speaker should work. I always give this example. There is a quote which says you can hide a dead body on the second page of a Google search. Everyone does a research based on the first page of Google, right? Makes the point. As a rebuttal speaker, go to the second page. You will find enough points to rebut. Okay. Make a note of them, bring them there. There is nothing called as a perfect opening speech. You can rebut on anything. I will give you examples, right? No research in the world is conducted across the world. Right?
Yeah.
So this is a hint to you.
Thank you.
If a research is conducted in the US, sir, we are living, is US a representative of the whole world? Yeah. So remember the other thing, it's very important for everyone to remember the judge's ballot. Okay. The judge's ballot is a vertical ballot. So a judge, when they are giving you marks as an opening speaker, when they are giving you marks, they are not waiting to listen to what the rebuttal speaker is saying. They would have given you marks based on the structure of your speech. Right? So that is done. Then comes the rebuttal speaker. He gets marked on the structure of his or her own speech. So you are in control of your destiny. It doesn't matter. Right? It's you who have to make that happen. Okay. I
Thank
think
you,
we
sir.
are done for time. Maybe we'll have some questions at the end of the evaluation if we have time, and I'm open to that. So with that, I will now hand you over to the moderator now, Toastmaster Raina.
Mithun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or you can hand over to me. I will just introduce.
Okay, okay. So I'll hand you back to Toastmaster Raina to take this forward.
Thanks a lot, DTM Sandeep. That was quite enlightening session. I hope you all got enough points to start practicing for our club debates. Now we will move on to the mock debate contest, a friendly contest between our Area 52 two teams. And to take this debate forward, we have a Toastmaster who is a Toastmaster for last 3 years, who is the current president of JLT Dubai Toastmasters Club, Toastmaster Midun. Let us welcome Toastmaster Midun.
Thank you, ADTM Rena. Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and dear guests.
Good evening.
A warm welcome to the special event of this meeting, the mock debate. So we have two teams debating today, and the goal of each team is to convince the audience that its arguments on the subject are better than those of the opposition, and the work together as a team to support their points. So there will be 3 speakers in each team. The rules and the number of people in each team, timings has been already defined or explained by Sandeep, but I will still mention it for the benefit of the participating team members. So there will be three speakers in each team. One opening speaker, the one who opens the debate and present the team's arguments and views on the topic. Rebuttal speaker, the one who rebut or counter-state the arguments stated by the opening speaker of the opponent team. And the concluding speaker is the one who summarizes the points presented by his team members. So let's have a look at the timings. So the opening speaker will have 3 minutes in total. So when he or she reaches 2 minutes and 30 seconds, green will be shown, and our timer is TM Nitin. So please pin him in the Zoom. And when you reach 3 minutes, a red signal will be shown by TM Nitin. Then you will have 30 more seconds, like a grace period.
10 seconds.
10 seconds.
10
And
seconds.
when you cross 10 seconds, you will be muted. Okay. Rebuttal speaker as well will have the same timing rules: 2 minutes 30 seconds green, 3 minutes red, and 10 seconds grace period. And he or she will be muted when they cross that 10 seconds. Concluding speaker, there's a difference in timing, which is he or she will get only 1 minute and 30 seconds green and 2 minutes red, then 10 seconds grace period. After each speech, we'll be giving a 30 seconds time for the evaluator to make the notes. Okay, so are you ready? So let's welcome two teams, Team A and Team B. For the motion, we have Team A, TM Shafiq, TM Anna, and TM Alexander. Against the motion, we have Team B. In Team B, we have TM Sophie, TM Naseeb, and TM Jibu. Okay, with a big round of applause, please welcome the debate members.
Toastmaster Midun, can you just tell me the roles of the three? Shafiq is opening.
Yeah, Shafiq is opening. Rebuttal is TM Anna.
Yeah.
Closing is TM Alexander.
Okay.
And against the motion, Team B.
Yeah.
Opening speaker is TM Sophie.
No.
Okay. Opening speaker is TM Naseeb.
Okay.
Rebuttal is TM Sophie.
Okay.
Closing is TM Jibu.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks.
Okay. Great. The topic for the debate is emotional quotient is more important than intelligent quotient. Emotional quotient is more important than intelligent quotient. To speak for the topic with a big round of applause, please welcome the opening speaker from Team A, TM Shafiq.
Thank you, Toastmaster Midun. We stand today for the motion, emotional quotient is more important than intelligent quotient. Let me begin with the definition of Cambridge Dictionary of emotional intelligence, or EQ, is the ability to understand the way people feel and to use these skills to make good judgment to avoid problems in your life. Is this not important? With your wife, every day, married people will understand that. It's not with Pythagorean theorem that you will solve your issue with your wife. Emotional quotient starts with the E for equity, E for equality, and E for enhancement, not the I of individual of the negative team. It's good to be intelligent, yes, I will not deny that personally, but it's more important to be emotionally stable. And let me tell you why. On October 2018, an article published in the Morning Post stated that 60 to 70%, let me repeat that, 60 to 70% of our life success is related to our interpersonal skills, our soft skills such as empathy, ability to socially interact with others, but also ability to control our feelings and emotions. Einstein was known as one of the most intelligent person on earth. Yes, but he was also emotionally unstable. The talent without the reason ends with disaster. The world was almost destroyed thanks to his genius. Thank you, Einstein. Emotional intelligence is so important that it's being taught in the Silicon Valley as an established method for success. According to the American Education Institute, in a research published in 2008, high EQ students have 30 to 40% more chances of handling conflicts successfully because they simply have empathy, simply establishing rapport with people. That's all about. And sadly, during the pandemic, we've come to know how important it is to socially interact with others. Remember that we are not alone on Earth. While you can program any computer to be smart, emotion is something that cannot be replicated. It's unique and inestimable. As it was said, we need a high emotional quotient to build a network of helpful people. It is indeed extremely rare for people to succeed in life without any help, either from friends, from family, from colleagues. With a high EQ, you will be emotionally smart to be able to have empathy, recover from life failures, as well as manage your relationship with good judgment, making your life a success. As the American poet Maya Angelou said, I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Over.
30 seconds silence for the evaluator to make notes. To speak against the topic, let's welcome the opening speaker from Team B, TM Nazeeb.
Good evening. Am I audible? Okay. Good evening, moderator, worthy opponents, and fellow Toastmasters. We stand against emotion. Emotion quotient is more important than intelligent quotient. Nobody wants to be a number. but there is one number that probably says a lot about you. Whether you know it or not, it is your IQ. IQ is the ability to learn, perceive, reason, remember, and problem solve, while EQ is the ability to understand your emotions and others and react to it. As EQ represents one's capacity to learn, the higher your IQ, the IQ represents one's capacity to learn, the higher your IQ, the easier it is for you to develop your emotional intelligence in the first place. Now let's talk about testing. There are standardized tests for both IQ and EQ. To give you an example of an IQ test question, you are given 5 patterns and you are asked to say what is the 6th pattern would be. You either get the answer correct or you don't. There is no manipulation of the results. Now let's see how the EQ is tested. In an EQ test, you are asked to rate yourself from 1 to 5, and you are asked questions like, I stay focused in getting my job done. I communicate my needs and feelings honestly. If a job is on the line, how would you answer these questions? Honestly, one's answer to these can be far from reality. As you can see, IQ tests give an honest and accurate gauge of a person's ability, while EQ tests fail to do so. Now let's look at research done on IQ and EQ. There are several studies which prove that superiority claims of EQ are completely bogus. Let me share a couple. Dr. Joseph and Dr. Newman of University of Central Colorado and Illinois University respectively set out to discover how much emotional intelligence really influences job performance. They compiled every systematic studies that are done on emotional intelligence and cognitive ability in workplace. Dozens of studies with thousands of employees in 191 different jobs. They concluded that cognitive ability, i.e. IQ, accounts for more than 14% of job performance, whereas emotional intelligence accounts for less than 1%. In another study done by Dr. Adam Grant, who is an organizational psychologist at Wharton University, Pennsylvania, and one of the world's 10 most influential management thinkers, IQ and EQ tests were done for 100 plus salespeople, and their revenue were tracked over several months. The results show that IQ is 5 times more powerful than EQ. Another one who did the research is a intelligence researcher at University of Edinburgh, Stuart Ritchie. In his recent study, he states that IQ is not just the indicator of prosperity, but it also indicates someone's longevity and also their health. So I repeat, my team strongly stand against emotion. EQ is more important than IQ. Over to you, moderator.
Second silence for the evaluator to make notes. Now, to rebut the arguments presented by Team A, I welcome Speaker 2 from Team B, TM Sophie.
Good evening, Toastmasters. Newspapers and dictionaries, what kinds of sources are these? We all know that people who write dictionaries have to write an entry for thousands and thousands of different words. They can't possibly pretend to be experts on the subject of EQ. And we all know that journalists are also generalists. So I have to wonder whether the speaker who gave the opening speech in favor of emotional intelligence even really understands the concept of emotional intelligence in the first place. I really questioned his understanding of the concept when he said it was about being emotionally stable. Emotional intelligence is about being able to adapt, to understand, adapt, and regulate your emotions to different contexts and different situations. There's that adaptability element was really missing in the speaker's understanding of emotional intelligence. But he also talked about Albert Einstein. He picked on an example of a man who is anything but common, anything but anyone that some of us could relate to. Albert Einstein was, by all accounts, a genius, a singular example. So it's not really the best example to pick when trying to identify with the audience, engage the audience, and say what matters to most of us. When we want to understand whether EQ or IQ is a good measure that matters to most of us and to the success in our lives, I'd like to refer back to what our opening speaker said. The IQ is a better predictor of job performance than EQ. The study by Adam Grant, professor of organizational psychology at the Wharton School of Business, found in fact that it is a 14% better predictor of job performance than EQ, which only predicted it in 1% of cases. The speaker also talked about having a high EQ, enabling people to handle conflicts successfully because of their empathy. But the reality is that he's not painting the full picture. EQ is only one small part of IQ. I'd like to share just some of the concepts from this book with you by Daniel Kahneman, Thinking Fast and Thinking Slow, which some of you may have read, in which Kahneman talks about System 1. System 1, which is the emotional system, which operates automatically and quickly with little or no effort. So that's the emotional system of the brain. And System 2, which allocates attention and effort to mentally demanding activities, essentially your intelligence, your reason, your ability to problem solve. So System 2 is actually the more powerful system in the brain, and is the one that we need in order to be able to regulate System 1. So in other words, your intelligence, your cognitive ability is far more important in your ability to actually even develop EQ. It is a necessary part, actually, even of developing EQ. So you need a very high IQ. That high IQ, for example, would allow you to read, to understand the concepts around EQ and to apply them to your own life. That cognitive ability would allow you to conduct a better analysis than people who maybe don't have such a high cognitive ability, such as yourself.
Seconds silence for the evaluator to make notes. To rebut the arguments presented by Team B, I welcome Speaker 2 from Team A, TM Anna.
Good evening, member of the House and fellow Toastmasters. We as a team stand strongly for the motion. Emotional quotient is more important than intelligent quotient. And we reject all the points raised by our Borja opponent. And I will prove it step by step why they are unreasonable, irrelevant, or simply not valid. Now, our Borja opponent started with definition of IQ and EQ. But how did they derive? Did he make him himself? How he can argue about something which is not defined? His second point was that EQ cannot be clearly tested while IQ can. So ask yourself, is love important? Can you measure love by numbers or by tests? No. And emotional quotient is a feeling. We cannot measure feelings as numbers. My Borja opponent mentioned 3 researches, but he didn't mention when they were conducted, which audience was used, and is it valid for today? For example, he mentioned Adam Grant from Pennsylvania Psychological University. He said that in his research, IQ is not EQ is not relative to performance. While let me bring to your attention the article which was published on Talents and Smart in October 2014. This article was about study conducted by Johnson & Johnson, where in that study they find out that 90% of high performance is associated with people who has a high EQ, while 10% of low performance people has low IQ. So this is the clear evidence why the study of which was mentioned by my Borja opponent is not valid. With these points of not valid, with this point, I want to reinstate our position that tonight we are for the motion that intelligent quotient is more important, that emotional quotient is more important than intelligent quotient. Thank you. Over to you.
Thirty seconds silence for the validator to make notes. Now, let's welcome TM Jibu, speaker 3 from Team B, for concluding their arguments.
Am I audible? Yeah. Okay. Good evening, fellow Toastmaster and distinguished guest. Based on the fact and figure and astounding information poured by my team members, and also we all collectively learned in last 10 to 15 minutes that EQ is not at all more important than IQ. My opening speaker pointed out very valuable points, that IQ is the ability to learn. IQ represents one's capacity to learn. The higher IQ, it is very easy for you to develop emotional intelligence in the first place. IQ supports highly to employee success in their job. Even IQ people have 5 times more sales than highly EQ people in one of the research. Not only that, the control team facts were slashed by my rebuttal speaker when she aptly pointed out that EQ is only one small part of IQ. EQ is a funny concept. IQ is better prediction of job performance. IQ is a necessary car to develop EQ. Based on all the facts and figures presented by our team, we request the House to reject the notion, which is emotional quotient is more important than intelligent quotient. Thank you.
Thirty seconds silence for the validator to make notes. Now, let me welcome TM Alexander, speaker 3 from Team A, for concluding their arguments.
Respected moderator, opponents, and fellow Toastmaster, good evening. My opening speaker, Toastmaster Shafiq, giving us statistical, research, and fact that were consistent, eloquent, and convincing. We supporting the motion, emotional quotient is more important than intelligent quotient. It is clear that we are not alone on earth. We must be sociable and creative and achieve successful in our life. We mentioned that the South China publication in 2008 states emotional quotation is more important than intelligent quotation. In fact, Dr. Simon demonstrated that 75% of success in our life is for our interpersonal skills. This creates empathy and another amazing skills. It's important to control our feelings and our emotion as well. As Shafiq correctly said, referring to Einstein, all people know about Einstein is because he was unstable emotionally, and he was create a huge problem around the world. That is very important to keep in mind. Not surprisingly, there is no doubt that all of us, without exception, have been emotionally affected. In addition, research in American education in 2020 indicate that students with high emotional quotient are 40% more likely successful compared with people with low IQ. No wonder people will forget many things, but remember that people will never forget that you made them feel. My rebuttal, speaker Toastmaster Anna, collapsed arguments presented by opponent. In fact, it's very clear that we cannot measure the love or feelings. She also referred to Johnson by Johnson in 2014 that demonstrated that 90% of high performance is not able to interact or to reach the successful. Therefore, as a team, we strongly support, certainly believe in a favor of the emotion. EQ is more important than IQ. Over to you.
Thank you, Team A and Team B. I request the audience to observe 1 minute silence for the evaluator to make the final notes. Great. Let's give a big round of applause to both the teams, Team A and Team B. Very well done. A lot of information to learn from. With that, let me hand over the podium to Sandeep for his evaluation. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mithun. Over to Toastmaster DDM Sandeep.
Okay, good evening all once again. Very nice debate. Toastmaster Raina, when she was introducing the debate, she said this is a friendly debate. There is nothing called like a friendly debate. The friendly debate is a contradiction in terms. If it is a physical one, you should see the expressions on the people's faces when the debate is over. At the end of it, you shake hands and then walk away. Anyway, I'm going to the way I'm going to evaluate this debate is I'll be talking about each one of the speakers in the sequence that they spoke. I will talk about some of the good things that were a part of the debate and what you did. And I might also give you some suggestions. Some of the suggestions will be specific to the debates, but those are examples for you to take forward. And forgive me if I'm a little bit critical, because if I'm not, then you will not learn anything. So the first speaker, Toastmaster Shafiq, I think from a opening speech perspective, very well done. You brought in the right kind of points. You brought in an article from the Modern Post. You talked about a research done in Silicon Valley, and you also made a statement regarding the current situation of the pandemic and how the emotional quotient is important there. Right. A few points for you maybe to take away is the following. One is you spent, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 30-35 seconds in a kind of a emotional address at the beginning, which basically is saying you are married, wife's problems cannot be solved by a Pythagorean theorem, and you need to be emotionally stable. Remember a few things that you need to know, and the more things you add like this, the more ammunition you are giving to your rebuttal speaker. So it's not that you will score less. You will get your points because your construct is good, but you are giving an opportunity for the rebuttal speaker also to score higher. That is what we should avoid. And I will show you how your rebuttal speaker used that when she spoke. So then going on to Toastmaster Nazib. IQ, good definitions of IQ is what IQ is. Then moving on to the standardized tests, and that's a very interesting point. I'll come back to that later when I talk about your rebuttal speaker. And more importantly, the several studies. I think the studies, the way you talked about them, in the way you brought the studies in, and especially the first study, which you actually went into the level of detail of how the study was conducted, what was the sample size. I think that's a very good way of doing it. The second one, which was with respect to Adam Grant, right? Yeah, Adam Grant's research, a very interesting research, and which actually got very nicely picked up by the rebuttal speaker of the opposition. And I will touch upon that when I go on to the rebuttal speaker. But again, from a structure perspective, I think you ticked most of the boxes of how an opening speaker should be. And okay, the only one point which you made is when you said that there are several studies which prove that this is completely bogus, right? If I were your rebuttal speaker, I would have hammered you on that. There is nothing completely bogus, right? It is a valid valid term which is being used. So avoid using terms like this when you are doing an opening speech. Now, let me go on to the rebuttal speaker of the team against. Very nice pickup of the point that emotional quotient has got nothing to do with being emotionally stable. And that is what the Toastmaster Shafiq I mentioned, right? Avoid using words which are not related to your topic, because that's when you leave an opening for the rebuttal speaker. It's not that, as I said, you would have got your 60, 70 points, but she would have got 5 points more just because she picked up that one thing. The second thing is when she talked about adaptability and how it is not really adaptability, which is emotional quotient. Emotional quotient is something different. And the point she was trying to make is that you had not understood your subject, which is what a rebuttal speaker is expected to do. The point the rebuttal speaker was trying to make was that the opening speaker has not understood the subject, and which is one approach to doing the rebuttal. And that example of Einstein, which was again very well picked up. Where is your backing? Where is your background material which says that Einstein was emotionally unstable? It should have come up. If you made the statement, it might be right. But there has to be some, as I said, where is your supporting to that statement? When you're making a statement that Einstein was emotionally unstable, where is your supporting for that? As I said, every statement you make as an opening speaker has to be justified with a supporting. And each one of these, the rebuttal speaker, Toastmaster Sophie, picked up very well. She brought in the book, and this is where Toastmaster Sophie, I would give you a recommendation on the book, right? You brought in the book, very nicely done. But if I were to just look at your speech now, I would consider it as adding a new point. But I will tell you how you could have done differently. What you could have said is, the opponent speaker has no clue what emotional quotient is and how IQ is just a part of EQ. I would recommend, just to improve his understanding, that he reads this book. Yeah. So what you have done is you have referenced again what he has done and brought in your new point. So these are tricks of getting your new points in as a part of your speech, right? Now, rebuttal speaker, Toastmaster Anna. Again, from a rebuttal point of view, the structure you followed was right. It was very well done, because for everything that you did, you referenced the points made by the opening speaker of the opposition. You talked about where did you get your definition of IQ and EQ. You also talked about EQ cannot be clearly tested, but you can't measure love by numbers, right? I will come to you how you could have done that one statement a little differently. And then the last one is the one on Adam Grant, right? The 2014 article on salespeople. And now, if I were in your place, firstly, Toastmaster Anna, you have to be a lot more powerful in your delivery as a rebuttal speaker. You have to come up and say, you don't know anything. It has to be a powerful delivery. As a rebuttal speaker, you have the option, come up with a very, very powerful delivery. The expressions on your face should also be, who is this guy who has come and spoken before me? That is the expression on your face that has to come out as a rebuttal speaker. Okay, now let me tell you how I could have tackled that second one differently, which is what I always say, going to the second page of Google, right? EQ cannot be tested. That was a statement made by your opening speaker, right? Sir, you're saying EQ cannot be tested, but do you know that X, Y, and Z tests and indicators which actually tell you about EQ? There are EQ measurements, right? There are tests which measure EQ. Whether they are right, wrong is a different thing. But if I'm not mistaken, there are tests which measure EQ. So bring that as a point, as a something which is there. The other thing is, this is when I come back to listening. The Adam Grant research, if you had heard it properly, was a sample size of salespeople, right? That was a statement which was made. Toastmaster Nazib, am I right? Yeah.
Right.
Sample of salespeople. Okay, so maybe IQ is important to salespeople. Who's sales? The whole world is not made up of salespeople, right? That is how your rebuttal has to come out. That's when I say you should be listening, right? Again, these are examples for you to take forward in your next one. One point again, Toastmaster Sophie, just to go back, an article in a morning post is not valid research. If I were in Europe, I can write an article. I wrote an article in Gulf News 5 times. An article, the opening speaker, Toastmaster Shafiq, said there was an article in the News Modern Post. An article is not research. He has to quote research, right? Anyone can write an article. So this is where I go back to saying listening. You need to listen to specific words, and you can use the specific words to beat up your opponent. Okay, now let me go on to the closing speakers. Closing speaker, Toastmaster Jibu. You summarized everything that your opening speaker did. But Toastmaster Jibu, you made it too short. Yeah, at the end, if you see, I don't think you even reached 1 minute of your time. Right? Or might have been a little more than 1 minute. So it was too short. You have to do justice. You have to go one level below, not just repeat a sentence. Through the research of Adam Grant, my opening speaker proved this. Through the research of at the University of whatever, my opening speaker proved this. That's all you need to do. But it has to be a little more detailed than what you did. You just mentioned statements. When you went to your rebuttal speaker, sir, you missed the 2 most important things that your rebuttal speaker spoke. The one was Einstein. When she rebutted opening speaker of the opposition using Einstein. That was one of the most important of her rebuttals. And the second most important rebuttal that she had was the one about the linking stability, right? Emotional stable is not emotionally. So if how do you summarize this? My rebuttal speaker has absolutely trashed the opening speaker of the opposition by telling you that emotionally stable is not the same as emotional quotient. She also showed you why the example of Einstein is a wrong example. So you have summarized her 2 points as a part of your closing speech, right? Give them that level of importance. I think from a structure perspective, did you tick the boxes? Yes, you did. But was it enough in terms of content? Maybe a little short. It could have been a little more better. Lastly, Toastmaster Alexander, a very good closing. A very good closing, but as I said, you need to bring in a little more power into your speech, right? You have to show that you believe in what your team members have said. Okay, so ensure that you bring in, I think what you did was the right. You went one level below. You talked about Einstein. Whether you believed Einstein was right or wrong is a different thing. But your opening speaker said it, so you brought Einstein. Your opening speaker talked about Dr. Simon's research, you brought it in, and you went to that level below, and that is where Toastmaster GB, if you see, he reached red as a part of his speech, but you did not reach amber. So look at that from a content perspective. Both from a structural perspective, both your closings were right. The rebuttal of the speakers was right. I think you brought in all the right points which your rebuttal speaker did, and if she had brought in a few other points which I spoke about earlier, maybe you would have covered it. So nicely done from a closing speech perspective, very structured in terms of the way you went about doing it. Overall, a good balance in terms of teams. I will not say which is right or wrong, because there is nothing right or nothing wrong in this, but these are some of the suggestions to take forward in your next debate. And the more you practice, the more you will get a hang of it, the more you will become. The key thing is, as I said, even though you are not counted for voice modulation, your voice gives an indication of how much you believe in your topic, right? So ensure that you bring that in as a part of your speech. It's not a lot of points, but if it is low, then the feeling is, I think this person is just coming here to do a job, right? So avoid that impression. Okay, so that's all. Nice debate. All the best to you. As I said, forgive me if I was a little critical, but I always feel that if I'm being wishy-washy, I'm not really giving you anything to take away. So all the best, and over back to you, Toastmaster Raina. Any questions either in the chat or just unmute yourself and ask.
I have a question. Yeah. Normally in the contest, if they get a topic like this, here the topic is EQ is more important than IQ. Yeah. Normally, I have seen people pick the word more important. So I from my understanding, both the teams have not concentrated on the word more. So how we can add the value to this debate if you pick the term more important?
Yeah, so I think there are two ways to look at this way, right? So the more important, you're right. So, but remember one thing: whenever you have a debate topic, the onus of proving the motion is on the affirmative team. The affirmative team has to prove that EQ is more important than IQ. The negative team just has to show that they don't have to show IQ is more important than EQ. They just have to show that either both are same or what the points that you are bringing are irrelevant. So both things can happen. They did not, as you rightly said, they did not bring in that more important thing. They tried doing it. So actually, if you look at it, they tried doing it as a part of the Silicon Valley example that Toastmaster Shafiq brought in, when they are now saying Silicon Valley is doing this. And also what Toastmaster Nazib said from the example of that University of Colorado, right? Toastmaster Nazib. That was an example
Right.
of a research that he had given. So there were points which they brought, but they didn't emphasize it. So the content was there, the emphasis which should have followed that maybe was not there.
We have one question in the chat box.
Yeah. So the topic words should not be changed. Yeah, they shouldn't be. So you either stand for the motion and you stand against the motion. Don't change the motion to say IQ is better than EQ or more important than EQ. But I don't think anyone from this team today did that. I think that was one. I was actually listening to that carefully, because that's what happens a lot of times. Someone comes and says at the end, we will ask you to pass the motion, IQ is more important than EQ. But that didn't happen. And that always happens for the negative team. But it did not happen today. Everyone said reject the motion, reject the motion, reject the motion. So either they had studied before, or my education session was reasonably good.
DTM Sandeep, regarding this timing, okay. So if you are talking less time, that means we are losing opportunity. That's it, right? We are not disqualified or
no. There is no disqualification in a debate. The only way you can get disqualified in a debate is if you are non-diplomatic in your language towards your opponents, or you use any of the taboo topics. Otherwise, you don't get disqualified. You can speak for 30 seconds or you can speak for 3 minutes, 10 seconds. It doesn't matter, right? And it is up to you. Now that reminds me of one thing which maybe I'm not sure what happened to whom. Yeah, if you have, as an opening speaker, if you have 3 or 4 points which you want to speak, a lot of times we as people, and it didn't happen here, maybe I'm just thinking aloud, bring in your most important point first. Most strongest point first. A lot of times we as speakers, what we want to do is we want to live with a bang. So we keep our most important point towards the end of the speech. And by the time we reach the end of the speech, the 3 minutes, 10 seconds are over and you are muted. So your most important point is gone. This has happened to me once or twice. When I've been speaking, I said, let me bring that last point at the end. But by the time 3 minutes, 10 seconds are gone, so your most important point is gone. So just ensure that you bring it right up front. That's a recommendation from me.
Okay, thank you.
And DTM Sandeep, I have seen getting impromptu topics when in a actual competition. For example, we have to go for the final round. So do you have any tips for that?
Okay, so the way we have always approached this is the following, right? When given that we normally have 15 minutes, to prepare for the final round. So the way we used to do is the opening speaker and the closing speaker do the research on the opening speech, right? So they do the research on the opening speech, whatever points on Google or whatever. And so immediately the opening speech is ready. Then the closing speaker has also got the summary points from the opening speaker. Okay. The rebuttal speaker is working on his own. He is putting himself in the foot of the, in the place of the opening speaker of the opposition and making points. So that, and then they work, then they come together, and then whatever the rebuttal speaker does, he gives that summary to the closing speaker. Okay. So remember one thing as an opening speaker, I always say, don't try to overthink on whether your points will be rebutted. As I said earlier, every point you make will be rebutted, because that's the job of the rebuttal speaker, right? if you come and say good morning, he will say, why are you saying good morning? What is good about this morning? So it can be anything. So don't worry about the rebuttal. Worry about, as I said, your vertical. How can I get good points for what I am speaking? How do I make my case strong? He will rebut anyway, right? So ensure that you do that and you get the points.
And one more question I have is, let's say the opening speaker has talked about 3 points, and I have no clue about the third point he talked about. How can I rebut if I don't have any clue about it?
Don't rebut.
Don't
Leave
rebut?
it.
Okay.
Don't rebut. Leave it. Ignore it. Sometimes ignorance is also a form of rebuttal, right?
Okay.
I don't consider that point important.
Okay.
Yeah. See, for example, Toastmaster Anna, when she was rebutting Toastmaster Nazib, the opponent speaker spent a lot of time telling us about what IQ tests are and what EQ tests are. What is the relevance to the topic? Here we are discussing whether EQ is important than IQ. Why do we need to go into the details of the test? That's another form of rebutting the same thing. Basically saying whatever he has done there is not important. See, as I said, the rebuttal's role can actually create a lot of drama, right? And especially in physical contests, it used to create a lot of drama. It's become lesser on an online medium because you can't create so much drama, right? So you can go basically stand, if you are at a podium, you can go and stand at the podium and hold your head in your hands. I don't know why I am here. There was nothing that the opening speaker said for me to rebut. That's also a form of rebuttal, right? The other example is the opening speaker of the opposite. That statement made by him was worse than, was like Swiss cheese, full of holes. Now, how many holes will I try to plug? That's also a form of rebuttal. These are sentences which are allowed as a part of your rebuttal speech. So use them, right? I was in a debate, and the opening speaker of the other team said, defined a topic, defined a word, but they defined the word in a very restricted manner, which was too small. That it was a much bigger word. It would have meant a much bigger thing. So when I came on stage, I said, the opening speaker of the opposition has learned from the Trump school of debating. He's restricted the topic for his convenience. The topic is much bigger. So this is all sentences and words which you can use. Only thing is, don't be undiplomatic. Okay, don't use the word everything that my opposition speaker said was nonsense, right? That is non-diplomatic. You can keep on making fun of my learned opponent, you know, you can use all of these kinds of terms. As I said, be politely rude. Okay. Anyone, any other questions?
There is one question from Toastmaster Kalpana. If the closing speaker talk about points from the opponent team, will it reduce the marks?
No. See, you will not get marks. See, a lot of times when the judges judge you, they will judge you on the number of points you have made. So let's say you have made 4 points, and they decide to give you, let's say, 5 marks per point that you have made. They will cannot consider the 4th point at all, because that was not relevant. They will only consider 3 and give you points for 3. See, it depends. Every judge works differently. Some judges give negative points. Some judges will not consider the point and judge you differently. So negative marking or not, it is for the judge. If I am a judge, as long as I am consistent across speakers, I have done my job. Now, whether I give negative points or not, that's my prerogative. That's my style of working. Okay. Good. I think we are done. I think we might have to. We have overshot a bit, but hope we have done what we were here for. And once again, thank you, Toastmaster Raina, for this opportunity, and all the best to all of you for all your debating future. And that's not debatable. Over to you, Toastmaster Raina.
Good evening, all, once again. Let us give a big round of applause for DTM Sandeep and all the team, both the teams, for their hard work and all the practice they have done in last 2 weeks. Because they are all new Toastmasters, we know that, and they have taken the courage to come here and speak. That shows their skill. I wish all the best to them for their club contest and for the way forward to the division and the district level. Okay, if you can just switch on your cameras, we can just take a group photo. And I also would like to thank our area secretary, Toastmaster Devina, Toastmaster Midun and Nidin for the role plays. And we have here DTM Karthik, our Division PQD and past area director of Area 52. DTM Karthik, are you there? I think he is not there. And I would like to thank all the members who have attended from IBM Toastmasters, GGA Toastmasters, all new chartered club. And I know that they are all thrilled to attend the debate contest and to reach up to the division and district level. All the best to you. We have recorded the session. We will be circulating the video of important parts, and I will send to you also. Yeah, DTM Karthik is here. Just a few words from our past area director and present division PQD, DTM Karthik.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Nice to see all those new debutant debaters doing fantastically well. I know most of the persons who attempted today are very much familiar to me in my previous term as Area 52, especially from DIC2 and IBM and all. Happy to see keynoters as well in this meeting. Thanks a lot for DTM Sandeep for his knowledge shared. I thoroughly enjoyed the session, and thanks, Raina, for this initiative. I too echo your dreams. The division winner of this debate contest and district winner of this debate contest should be from Area 52. All the best. And happy to see all those IBMers. Thank you.
Thank you, DTM Karthik. Thanks a lot for your presence. And once again, thank you, DTM Sandeep, for his knowledge. Our teams will be reaching you more for their other levels also. Okay. So with that, I declare this meeting is closed. See you in our next education session. Good night and thank you.
Good night.
Sorry, I just asked from where the video link actually.
We will be sharing to Toastmaster Simon and Toastmaster Selma. Okay. Mainly I will be uploading in a Google Drive, so you can download and see.
I will ask the Simon or Selma. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all the team.
Bye bye.
Thank you, Toastmaster Kalpana. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night.